Hey friend, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here listening to another episode of the Pattern Design Circle podcast. Here we talk all about the ins and outs of designing knit and crochet patterns and running a business that makes it all possible. I'm Jessica, your host, knitting pattern designer, design mentor, and the friend in your ear. Can't wait to dive right in. The Pattern Design Circle podcast is sponsored by the Pattern Design Circle, a membership community for knit and crochet pattern designers that are feeling lost, lonely, or frustrated in their business. It connects you with a supportive community that's always eager to answer your questions and help you through the hard times. And there's loads of resources and activities specifically catered to business and designing. Sound like your jam? Check it out at snickerdoodleknits.com/design-circle. That's snickerdoodle, like the cookie, knits, knits.com/design-circle. All right, let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Pattern Design Circle podcast. As always, I'm so excited that you're here. I was going to say in my ear. I'm blowing in your ear. That you're here tuning in, listening to my ramblings. So today I'm super excited to share another inspirational kind of podcast episode inspired by another creative outside of like this craft, hobby, artsy kind of industry in a sense. That's such a broad kind of category that maybe I guess it's still fit, but a little bit different industry than I'm used to working in. And so it's another interview where there's just so much shared that I wanted to share with you. I wanted to pass it along, wanted to kind of have some discussion around it. So that is what this episode is. And actually this interview inspired me so much that I'm going to make it a two-part series. So this is part one. This is like the more motivational part on talking about creativity and passion and just the whole creative side of running a creative business. And then the second episode, part two, is going to dive more into the business side of things. And of course, they tend to intertwine. One impacts the other, as it always does, as a creative entrepreneur, as a human living life, all the things. So anyway, I'm super excited to share this episode with you talking about Jacob Collier. So this was an interview that Jacob Collier did on the Collin and Samir Show. And yes, so a little bit of background. If you don't know who Jacob Collier is, he is a musician. Some people call him like Mozart, Beethoven of our time. No, Einstein of music of our time. And basically, he's just very intelligent and unique. Like he's not being put into kind of the typical boxes that maybe we see for the music industry. He's very passionate. And yeah, so a little bit of background for how I first came into contact, or I mean, I haven't personally met him, but how I first came to know about Jacob Collier. My partner, he is a pianist himself, not professionally, but he took piano lessons for 12, 15 years, whatever, growing up, maybe 12 years. And then so he knew about Jacob Collier from YouTube, and then he was talking to me about him and introduced me to his work. And what I really love about Jacob's work, and his videos that I watch, I don't watch so much, or I'm not as interested in like his concert videos. I'm more interested in like his masterclass kind of videos where he's teaching and sharing. And I love, first of all, how passionate he is, how he absolutely loves this, and it comes across as he doesn't care if people perceive him as extremely nerdy, as um, different, as unique, he is just showing up as himself, sharing passionately and creatively. I love that so much. And then I personally really like the nerdy side, where he's just like he understands things in such an interesting way, even though I don't understand probably half of it. I'm not. I had a little bit of music in school, but um, I'm not a musician by any means, but it's just so fascinating to me to listen to him and talk about all these different music theories and what he disagrees with, compared to other people and his unique theories, all these kinds of things. Like he's just um comes across to me as if he is embodying um just like a confidence and a surety and a curiosity and a passion. So that is to me who Jacob Collier is. Of course, I'll have his information linked down below so you can check out his work for yourself. So let's go ahead and start with uh, a quote, or a lot of these aren't word for word quotes. They're more like the idea of what he was sharing. But so this isn't a word for word quote, but he says there's this idea currently in like this creative entrepreneur kind of world that you have to find your voice and to be contributing to like this industry right off the bat. So like from the very beginning of trying to run a business, from trying to share your work, that you have to have a voice and you have to have like this big contribution to whatever this is that you're, the space that you're in. Um, but he says it takes time participating in that industry, in that world, in that sphere to find that voice and to find a way to create things that matter to you. Um, and I found that really, really interesting and fascinating because that is true from a marketing perspective. The first thing you're supposed to do is to understand your brand, to, you know, establish your brand voice, your brand values, what is your unique selling proposition? What is so unique about what you offer people, about your product, about your services? Like that's what you have to have clarity on from the get-go. Um, and run with that. And I totally agree with him. Um, I like to tell folks all the time that it might, like, yes, go through that work, if for nothing else, to have an awareness of it and to kind of know maybe what you're searching for, what you're wanting to learn for your business or about your business. But I think it is totally normal to not have the answers as a brand new business. I actually primarily work with business owners who have been doing their thing for a while. So they have a better idea of what they're doing, what they love, what they love to do, what they want to do more of. And that, I think, makes it easier to really dive into your branding and your marketing. That's not to say that it's impossible, but I do find that it's a lot easier if you've been doing the thing. For like some of these industries where we're creative hobbyists, we started with the passion. So you started with knitting, or you started with creating pottery for yourself, even music. And it's something that you were just really passionate about. You know what you really love. And then you can build something, a business out of that. You have an idea already of what you want to do, where, contrarily, maybe just saying, all right, I'm going to start a business and not having a lot of clarity on, all right, what are the parts of business that I really love? What is it that I really want to do over and over again? What am I super passionate about? And so yeah, I think that's a really great point because we can put so much pressure on ourselves to have all of the answers. Like when somebody tells us we need to be doing this work, which if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you know my idea on my perspective on need tos, haves tos, or shoulds. But there is so much pressure to know all of the answers when people ask these questions, and it's okay to just say I don't know, or to say I think this is the direction I'm going in. You can lean into that, and then if it doesn't feel right, change. And you can also not have a super ton of clarity, and you can, you know, this the saying of like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Um, that kind of advice is, all right, if you want to accelerate in business as fast as you possibly can, if you want to make as much money as you can, if you want to, kind of the business side, if that's what you're really going for, following those strategies absolutely will help you. But the thing is, as creative entrepreneurs, we also really care about this creativity aspect, right? So there was the podcast episode that I shared about, I don't remember. It was another interview on the Collin Samir Show because I had watched several interviews in a row on their YouTube channel, which was interesting because I wasn't actually familiar with their work prior to that. But anyway, this show the episode that I did the podcast on, the person being interviewed um, was talking about really understanding uh, is the financial side, is the business side really what my goals are? Is that what is most important to me? I would argue that most of us creatives, probably especially if you're here in my space, we are extremely driven by the creative aspect. We are driven by something inside of us that wants to share, that wants to create, that is passionate. And that passion is actually what matters more, or at least as much as um, the financial side. So, to be extremely happy in your business, I would argue that it's not the best course of action to, all right, say, okay, I'm going to start a business. What do I want to make it about? Okay, I want to make pottery and I want to specialize in this thing, blah, blah, blah. When I have made like 2 pottery pieces, I haven't even thrown anything on the wheel before. And then feel like you have to stick to that. There later on in this episode, I'll talk about something that Jacob said about rigidity, but I also feel like we see people, or we maybe feel like maybe we put pressure on ourselves to, once we have made a decision, once we have found clarity on what we are excited about, on what our brand is, we feel like we have to stay in that and stick in that. And we change, we adjust, we evolve. Life is that way. Different things come up year after year. Our priorities as humans change. Our priorities as a business owner can change. And so it's absolutely okay, and I would argue important, to revisit these things and adjust them. So if you have an idea of your brand voice and your brand values and all of that right now today, that is amazing. That is wonderful. And also, it's okay for that to change in a month from now, in a year from now, in a decade from now. You do not have to be tied to that. It's okay to follow your passion. And then also, on this sort of vein of just starting out as a creative entrepreneur, Jacob Collier had said that you can't begin by being an expert. You begin by being curious. And so I imagine he was probably talking more about, well, I don't know. It could have been business, it could have been music. But um, regardless, we can't start anything as an expert. We can listen to all of the things, come in with knowledge about it, but we can't be an expert until we've been doing it. We can't be an expert until we've really um, dove into the topic and explored it. And like you said, be curious to actually understand it deeper, to actually kind of immerse yourself into it. And I do feel like there is a lot of pressure for entrepreneurs, and I'm sure just in general, to be an expert from the very beginning. It's impossible. Um, it's just impossible. And so maybe don't, first of all, don't put that pressure on yourself. If you are feeling um, imposter syndrome because you aren't an expert, that's okay. That's normal. You can't know everything just magically. But allow yourself space to learn and to grow, to be curious, to be passionate, to dive into these things. If you're interested in learning about another aspect of something related to your craft or to your work or to business, give yourself the space to explore that. Um, give yourself the time to kind of meander down that path and try not to put too many expectations on yourself of what the outcome looks like or what the timeline looks like for that. Um, Now I understand we live in a world where money is important, and a lot of times these conversations can get difficult because we're like, well, I need to have clarity so that I can make money. I need to, all of these kinds of things. I think it's very important that you sit with yourself and you look at your own personal situation and understand you know, where your money is coming from, how important it is to have a certain cash flow coming in or any of those kinds of things. Find spaces where you can create flexibility for yourself. Um, Even if your creative business is your full income and you rely on it, find ways to give yourself space and emptiness to explore and to learn and to grow. And it will only benefit you as a person and as a creative and as a business owner. But the hard thing is, you won't necessarily see those returns very quickly, right? So, having creating some sort of buffer, I'm thinking especially financially, so that you're able to explore these things freely without that pressure is extremely valuable. Um, so he's talking about being curious and diving into that and following that curiosity, and I would say even passion, um, following that, and that will lead you to become an expert. That will lead you to find something that truly lights you up, something that you can become an expert in, something that you maybe have a unique twist on your perspective about it, or you've just like dove so deep into this topic that now you're an expert on this like very specific kind of aspect of your work. And the next thing that I was going to share from the podcast was, or from this interview, was that they were talking about how your passion brings people in, it drives people in, even if they don't understand it or what you're talking about. And I always say this, I always say people love to see you passionate. People love to see passion. And I would argue that's exactly the same what I shared about Jacob Collier, my experience with his work. there's a lot of stuff that I don't understand about what he's talking about. I know that I am not his ideal customer, and at the same time, I am fascinated. I am drawn into his work because of his passion, his curiosity, his interest in diving deep into these things, and then his passion to share it with the world, with YouTube, with the internet, etc. Um, and so trust that um, leaning into that passion is going to pull people in, not in a weird way, not in a way where, um, yeah. Anyway, it's going to attract people, and it will especially attract the people that you are most that share similar passion or that have a respect and appreciation for that passion. Um, and if that's what you're truly passionate about and that's what you're wanting to focus on, then this is going to be an audience then who is, whether you're selling something yet or not related to that passion, it's kind of priming, it's priming your audience or cultivating an audience that's already excited about your passion. And so then when you share things, share it with passion, share your excitement, share your love. And it can feel vulnerable. You can maybe question, like, what if I look silly? What if people think I'm weird because I'm interested in blah, blah, blah? What if it's people think I'm ridiculous for being this excited about this passion? Well, maybe there will be some people that way, but you'll draw in the people who are interested in that, in your passion, and you will be more excited. You will be fully embodying what you're passionate about and excited about, right? Um, so on that note, then in this interview, they were talking about you could do something unique and innovative yourself, but first you have to get comfortable. So I would say, piggybacking on this topic of passion, um, you have to kind of get comfortable in your passion. You have to be in a space where you are maybe confident, where you feel safe, where you are excited about this thing when it's just you, when there's nobody else around watching. And then once you're comfortable in that, once you're comfortable in maybe being creative and exploring your creativity, uh, once you're comfortable in that, then you can take it farther and deeper and you can share it and you can find your own unique twists and innovations. But you kind of have to really get extremely familiar with the thing that you're working with. So whether that is knitting or whether that is pottery or whether that is music or whatever it is, um, to get so comfortable in that kind of topic, that kind of world, that kind of sphere. And then it's only once you're in that kind of comfort passion zone that then unique and innovative things will come from that. I don't imagine there are very many people who have been able to say, "Oh, I want to create something unique and innovative," and built a whole business off of that was successful. Um, you kind of have to start at the ground level, and that is okay. That is 100% okay. You do not have to push that timeline. Um, that is one of the hard aspects of being a creative entrepreneur is creativity is unpredictable. Creativity is something that you can't just plug into a calculator and it magically appears. It's not something that you can just spend X number of hours on and then it's there, it's done, right? And at the same time, that's something that's really beautiful because it's such a kind of organic process every single time. It's something that is just like it's its own kind of thing, and you just have to allow it to be. Um, and then on this about getting comfortable, Jacob Collier, he said that you have to be comfortable with not knowing the next move and comfortable with friction. So I think not knowing the next move is very similar to this idea of, um, creativity is unpredictable. We can't harness it, we can't force it, we can't manipulate it, we can't make it do anything in particular. Um, and you have to get just okay and comfortable with the fact that you can't make it do anything. You can't force it. And to just be sit in that curiosity and that passion and exploration and diving deep and just trust that it will become something eventually, right? And then a lot of times there's just a sudden burst and there's a whole lot of it, right? So you might go through a period where it's just a little, and then suddenly all of the things, all of the creativity, all of the unique inspiration, all of the passion, it just floods, and you get to embrace that wave as well. And then, okay, so like a recommendation from Jacob was to ask the universe, what does life want from me, and what can I contribute, rather than asking, what do I want from life? So I would also say this is true of like business, this is true of creativity, this is true of art. Um, when when you're thinking about what you want to create, what you want to sell, don't be focused on yourself. We hear this all the time, right? Uh, Business isn't about yourself. Your About Me page isn't about yourself. Your website isn't about yourself. Your social media isn't about yourself. Even if your face is all over everything and you're the creator, you are the maker, you are the artist, and you are the one doing all of this. It's not about you. It's about what you're providing the people on the other side, the entertainment that you're providing, the education, the value that you're providing, the um, knowledge that you're providing, the success that you are providing somebody else by using their thing, the joy that you are giving them. And so rather than saying, what do I want out of this business? Or what do I want out of this art or this hobby? Or what do I want out of life? Asking, what can I give it? What can I create? What can I bring to the table? And I would say, I personally feel like both of these questions, both aspects are actually important. I think that it's important, especially in the business side of things and the life side of things, to think about what do I want, what's important to me, especially when we're feeling misaligned, especially when things just are not feeling right, and it's like, all right, something needs to change. What here isn't making me feel good? What here is making it feel sticky? Taking a look at it then and saying, what would I prefer instead? What kind of life do I want instead? However, I do think that for getting out of our own minds, for marketing, for creating the thing, this other aspect can be extremely important as well. Of what can I contribute? What does life want from me? What does my audience want from me? What does the business want from me? And sometimes that's where we find maybe those hard truths of things that we would rather not face, we would rather not think about. But we realize, okay, what my business wants from me is for me to slow down. What my business wants from me is to be focused. What my business wants from me is to be passionate and to be excited. There's all sorts of different answers there. It doesn't have to be hard. And in the long run, I do believe that if we're actually following this, that especially if you're asking what does life want from me, I think that that leads us into more of our passion. It leads us into more of what we're really wanting. It leads us more into more of our terms of success, our definition of success, all of that kind of stuff. And then what can I contribute? What do I have to offer? So for myself, a lot of times my answer to that question is I have compassion. I care for people. And I have passion. That's what I can contribute to life. That's what I can offer. And so what are ways that then I can use that talent or that I don't know, gift, whatever you want to think of it as. How can I use that and embody it more deeply in my business, in my art, in my marketing, in all of these things? All right, I feel like I should have split this into 5 episodes. So I'm going to try to pick up the pace here so we don't have a 1,000,000 hour long episode. Because I am, as per usual, getting excited about these things and taking them, uh, you know, what's the word that I'll say? Basically, I'm just yabbering on about these things because I get so passionate about these topics, right? Okay, uh, so he talks about this of asking the universe, asking life, what can I contribute? What do you want from me, kind of thing. But then he did also say at a different point in the interview, a lot of these things, um, these weren't like back-to-back topics the way that I'm presenting them. I had the list of topics and then like I kind of rearranged them to a way that I felt like made most sense for this episode, this podcast episode. So he said, so even though you are asking, all right, what do you want from me? What can I contribute? You don't have to be, the word that I'm thinking of, I don't want to use. You don't have to be a servant. You don't have to be bound to what other people want. You don't have to be bound to, even if say your audience really wants you to create. Well, let's take a musician. Let's say the audience really wants you to create pop music, and that's not what you want to do at all. You've tried it, you've hated it, and you're just miserable. I argue, don't follow that. Find a different audience. Follow your passion. Do that. And I believe that life, this idea of what would life be asking of you, it would feel good and to an extent easy to follow what life is asking of you. So if it's feeling miserable, I would argue that's not actually the correct answer. That's not the answer to be following. So, alrighty. So he said, you get to make your own world. There's proof for whatever you want to believe. So even though you have answers, you're looking outside of yourself for answers, to maybe have a mission, a purpose, a value beyond yourself. And at the same time, you get to create your life, your world, your business into whatever you want it to be. You can imagine anything you want at all. And there's proof for that. You can choose what you focus on today you can choose what you make your passion or your creative work into in the future. You get to choose what kind of you're thinking about and what you're embodying to create this world however you want it. And so I guess one example as far as choosing whatever you want to believe, you probably have neighbors, you have other people in the same town or city or state. You're all essentially living in the same world, right? But you each have very different understandings of what that world is. And some of that is individual circumstances, of course, and experiences. But uh, let's say like the larger political world or the larger popular, I don't know, movies and all that kind of stuff. Um, you likely have different beliefs based on the information that you take in, based on the information that you believe, based on the information that you pay attention to. And so if you want to create a world, let's say you want to create a world of more just wonder and like appreciation for the little things, all that kind of stuff. You can start to surround yourself with that. You can um, surround yourself in books and podcasts and TV shows and who you follow on social media and um, start creating this world where the things that you are consuming are supporting that belief of what you want the world to look like, and your world will become more of that. That doesn't mean that nothing else will penetrate that world, but we really can create bubbles for ourselves of gratitude, of love, of kindness, of support, and nothing's changed externally for us except for like what we've chosen to surround ourselves with, what we've chosen to pay attention to, what we've chosen to listen to, what we've chosen to consume. And so I think that's really inspiring. I think that's really motivational. I think that is very encouraging that whatever you're dealing with right now that maybe doesn't feel good, it can change. You can change it. You can't necessarily change the the physical circumstances or maybe the people around you or your coworkers or whatever, but you can change what you focus on. You can change things to have a different perspective and then your world changes. All right. Um, Changing topics a little bit. Uh, Something that I really, really, really loved that Jacob Collier shared was it's not how many people did I reach, it's of those people, how many did I move? And so this is really touching on the impact of our work rather than the reach of our work. Rather than building a massive audience, it's saying, what was my impact on those people? Was my art something that they saw, maybe scrolling Instagram, they saw in a museum, they saw at a show, and they saw it, and 5 seconds later, they're not thinking about it anymore. They never think about it again. Um, or is my artwork something that's leaving an impression, something that's really speaking to who they are as a person, to maybe their wants or their struggles, or it's really relating to them. It's making them feel seen and heard and understood. It's resonating with them in a way that moves them emotionally, it inspires them, whatever it does for them. And so we could do that through art. We can do that through, the things that we are creating. My kind of opposite example of somebody just walking by, seeing your thing, forgetting about it, is a museum that I went to here in my city. Let's see, it would have been this year's 2024. I think it was in 21 or 22. So it was 2 or 3 years ago. I went to this museum. And there's this artist who created art that honestly, the art itself didn't speak that much to me. But it was learning about him as a person and the way that his brain worked and his creativity that really spoke to me. And the thing that especially, like, I've thought of over and over again, and I've probably shared it on the podcast half a dozen times, or more, is there was one of his letters that he had written to the owner of the museum. And it wasn't just a typical newsletter. It wasn't just, dear so and so, and then paragraphs of writing. No, this was like him sharing his idea. So he had like sketches, but then he had words. He'd written his letter around his sketches, and they're not in lines. They're not in straight lines like we're used to reading. It's just like squiggling all over the page, all around, going in spirals all over the place. And from a practicality standpoint, it'd be kind of frustrating for a lot of people. I imagine the recipient of the letter, he got enough of these that he learned how to kind of read it to make sense. But I just found it so fascinating, so interesting. Like he wasn't being confined to what is normal and what is typical and how you're supposed to write a letter. And it's just made an impact on me. It's inspired me. It's made me. I'm still trying to figure out how to create a newsletter inspired by that. Obviously, I want people to be able to read it. I want people to be able to figure out what I'm trying to tell them, and I want to make it accessible. But I want it to be a really fun, creative experience, not just for me making it, but also for them reading it. And so we can move people through our art via our art. Like for my knitting patterns, I want, my intention is to move people through the stories related to the patterns, the symbolism related to these patterns, the inspiration behind the patterns. But we can also do it through our marketing, through the stories that we tell, through the things that we share, quotes or poems or whatever, in our emails, on our podcast, on social media. We can move people in the way that we speak, in the passion that we have, and how we share it with people. And so are you wanting to leave a lasting impression on people? Or are you wanting to really move them in a way that inspires them, that motivates them, that empowers them, all of these kinds of things? And so Jacob then said, so then the question is, what does it take to move a person? What does it, how in the world can we move another human being? How in the world can we create kind of this emotional response? And he says it's to be you and to tell the truth. So that's not that difficult, right? Well, sometimes figuring out who you are and embodying that can be difficult. I will say that, but it's not about, like, you don't have to learn the psychology of humans. You don't have to learn what makes people respond. You just have to show up as yourself, your passionate, creative, human self, um, and tell the truth from your perspective. Tell the truth of maybe the world through your art. You just tell your story. You don't have to pretend to be someone else. You don't have to pretend to know anything else. You don't have to pretend to anything. You don't have to make up stories. You don't have to tell lies. Um, you get to just exist and be human and show up as yourself and be creative and be passionate. And that can move people. That can inspire people. Like I said, Jacob and this artist at the museum, like what has left such an imprint on me, such kind of an impact on me, is their ability to just embrace and embody their creativity and their passion and to go with it, to not let fear or what other people think or say hold them back, or maybe even expectations of what's normal or what you're supposed to do. Um, and then last part of what he said was find resonance in you for something that is true, and you will find your people. So, what is it like what really resonates deeply with you? What are the things that you are passionate about? What are the things that move you? And just dig in deep on that, right? Um, it's not a matter of taking all of these classes, of being told everything, how to do, blah, blah, blah. You're missing this, you're missing that. Um, like so much of it is just in you. You already are this creative, beautiful, abundant human being, and you just have to embody it. And I know that can be so difficult, and at the same time, the concept is so simple. And I love that it doesn't have to be so complex. It doesn't have to be, um, I have to take this certain course. I have to learn from these certain people. I have to like, no, no. You get to allow your passion and your creativity to sparkle and to shine and to motivate and to move people. And it's so powerful and beautiful. Okay. Um, and then another thing that he had said was, or somebody on the show, I have it in quotes. So this is an actual quote: make music that only you can make. I love that because it can be so easy as artists, as creatives, to look at other people's success and feel like we have to, we need to, or we should somehow kind of emulate what they are doing in order to be successful. So maybe you are a painter and you see somebody else who's extremely successful does this certain kind of artwork. Um, I'm thinking of like artwork terms that I don't actually know what they mean, so I won't say them. But so a different style of okay, you see somebody successful, and they are amazing at this style of artwork, of painting, and so now you feel like, all right, the people of the world in this day and age, they love this kind of artwork, and that's what I have to do to be successful. I will learn how to do that, and I will just do that style. But you don't love it. So, I mean, you probably run into burnout, you get frustrated, you're not loving your work, blah, 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 all that stuff. And you're not passionate about it, so you're not going to be as excited about selling it. You're not going to be as confident in showing up and sharing it. Um, and yeah, so you might follow all of the things that this other person has done, but because that's not who you are, that's not your truth, that's not, um, your original unique capabilities, you might just flop. I mean, it could flop no matter what, right? But when we're talking about this idea that I mentioned earlier from that other podcast episode that I had of like doing the creative thing is part of the win. You have to do what you love. You have to do what you're passionate. You don't have to, obviously. But in order to feel so fulfilled, in order to really love what you're doing, you can't do what you hate, right? um, okay, so my I made a little note of my thoughts when they were talking about that. No one, so this is um my 2 cents that I'm adding along with my other 384 cents. Um, no one can make your stories. No one can tell the story the same way that you do. No one has the same experiences that you do. No one has lived life in your body, in your shoes, walked your path. Um, no one has been through the same experiences. No one can, recreate those experiences the way that you felt them. No one can have your passion. Your passion is yours. That is unique to you. It is something that you love. It is something that you will be able to talk about with a light and an excitement that somebody else can't. No one else can create your emotions, the things that you feel, the things that move you. You can talk about those things in a way that nobody else can. And so there are many other things that could be made by other people. There are a lot of things that I mean, can be replicated, right? But those things that are uniquely you are the things that you have lived, are the things that are those emotions, are those stories, those things that drive your creativity, that drive your art, the things behind the scenes, behind the story or behind the artwork that you create. Um, those things are things that only you can make. And those are the things that you can share that are unique, that are different, that are you. Okay. Uh, Alrighty. I need to, I'll start wrapping this up before too long. I have just a few more things from this interview with Jacob. He says, when it comes to creativity, forcing it isn't necessarily helpful. If it's not flowing today, that's okay. You can step away. Forcing it and being intentional and direct can be more helpful in things like routine and remembering to eat, etc. So, um, I kind of touched on this earlier, didn't I? But we can't force creativity. We can't make it do whatever we want it to do. We have to allow it to move us. We have to allow it to impact us. We have to allow it to have its own unique whatever it's going to do. And we have to lean into its ebbs and flows. If the creativity is feeling hard and difficult and unenergized, if you're not feeling the passion, it's okay to step away, right? It's okay to come back to it later, another time. However, there are things where having structure, forcing things into a certain kind of rigidity can be helpful. And those are things like routine, like schedules, like I mean, one of his examples was eating, remembering to eat, having reminders for that. Those are things that actually, when we create kind of those boxes and the rigidity, when we take away the question mark of those kinds of things, it allows more space for the creativity. So I'm sure I've probably shared this before, but they say that like the president of the United States, well, I don't, is this every president or was this just one president that I was talking about? No, I don't remember. Anyway, let's say lots of successful people, president or not, they will have all the same outfit in their wardrobe so that they never have to make a decision about what they're going to wear. It creates a structure that just makes it easy to follow, to do, creates a habit, and that allows more space for more important decisions, more important things that need to be decided and to be focused on. And so creating structure, if you want to do something about what you wear, I have heard like some people just choosing their outfit the night before can help them the next morning. But decision fatigue is a real thing. Our brain only, can handle so much. And so creating places of certainty for the uncertain is actually extremely helpful. A lot of people, my fellow ADHDers, I see you. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I can't handle structure. I can't handle rigidity. I can't handle routine." When in reality, even us ADHDers, we do better when we have some of that structure. When we don't have the structure at all, there's just too much openness, too many decisions to be made, that the creativity actually does not thrive there. Instead, it thrives with some sort of structure. And that doesn't mean that you have to follow the structure every single day. If you are feeling off, if you are feeling gross, if you are feeling meh, if you're feeling uninspired, that's okay. But just a little food for that, um, about structures and routines and schedules and things like that. Remember to eat. Your brain needs fuel. Your brain needs food to actually be creative too. And so he said that in talking about not forcing it, allowing it to flow, it being creativity, he says creativity is like the weather. It just is, and you work with what you have. So even if you aren't feeling so inspired, even if the creative juices just aren't flowing, do we stop the whole world because it's cloudy outside? We don't. We still have to work, we still have to feed ourselves, we still have to make money, all of those kinds of things. And so even if your creativity is feeling insignificant, maybe it's feeling dull, maybe it's not feeling so sharp, we can still work with that creativity. You can still dive into your art practice, your creative practice. You can dive into creating, and you might actually find more creativity in there, or you might not. But you still have a whole lot of other things you can do in your business, right? There are a lot of aspects of running a business that don't require the same creative energy as creating your art. So Jacob said, for his daily work, creativity, and flow, he gauges himself like the weather. So in the morning or whenever in the day, I don't know if this is the exact question, but he says, where do I meet myself today without changing myself? So what am I feeling today? What kind of creativity or inspiration do I have today? And how do I meet myself there so that I'm still my authentic self? If I'm feeling whatever sort of way, I'm not forcing those feelings away. I'm not forcing myself to be a different person. But I can meet myself there and do what I can in that space. And I love that so much. Reminds me a lot of one of my coaches. She recommends in the morning asking yourself, what do I need today? What do I need in this season? And so, do I need rest? Do I need to take 5 minutes to journal? Do I need to water? Do I need food? What is it that I need? And meeting yourself there. So some of those things, obviously, you can address those, and then you are better equipped to follow through with the task or whatever it is that you're working on. And then he said, rigidity can cause unnecessary friction. So don't be so rigid that it's like, all right, my creative time is from noon to 1 every single day. And during that time, I'm going to create 3 pieces of artwork. No, 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 no. Creativity needs some flexibility, right? But you like that can then our brains can then kind of dread that time or feel too forced in that time. So learning, I think so much of being a creative entrepreneur is learning the balance of this rigidity, these systems, these schedules, and all the routines, while also creating so much space and time and flexibility for creativity to just be, for the art to just flow, for the passion and all the things that we're excited about. All right, two more things to touch on. Jacob, this is supposed to be a word for word quote because I have it in quotation marks. The best art reflects life, and life takes us by surprise. So that's also relating back to that. Not being too rigid. The best art reflects life, and life takes us by surprise. So it can't be predicted. It can't be, you can't just have a magic formula for creating the perfect art, for creating the thing that you're going to be most excited about, that's going to be the most unique, beautiful thing that you've created this week or this month or whatever. You have to allow space for your own creativity to surprise you, your own artwork to surprise you, your own creativity and art to like take your breath away and move you in the same way that you want it to do to your audience. So, like also to me, that also speaks of creating space to be amazed and to be filled with wonder and to see kind of the beauty and the magic in everyday art or creativity or life or whatever it is, rather than just focusing on the predictable and having all these expectations for what you're going to see and meet and all the things. So, okay, last. As the spectacular becomes ordinary, he's talking about with AI, with artificial intelligence, the ordinary will become spectacular. So the things that maybe have been so amazing and impressive in the past, now technology can do those things, right? And so that's the ordinary. But the ordinary, simple, beautiful little things can become spectacular. So it's those things that are already inside of every single one of us. It's the human connection, it's the emotion. Those are the things that are most spectacular because those aren't the things that AI can replicate. Your art, your creativity, and your passion, like we said earlier, are unique to you, and AI can't do that. AI cannot be you. Um, and so the things that maybe you think are most simple and boring about yourself could be the things that are most inspiring and spectacular to someone else. Um, and then just a few more things on that AI that he had talked about. He said, as we have access to information anywhere, do we train ourselves to memorize those things? Or do we train ourselves to have empathy and courage? And again, that again is coming. All of us, we can have empathy and courage. We can have that passion and drive. Are we focusing on those things? Or are we focusing on all of the mundane, I don't know, the things that could be memorized, the the structures and pieces that like where is your energy going? Is your energy going into your creative practice, into creating your art? As a creative entrepreneur, it absolutely could feel like you have to focus on the entrepreneur side. You have to focus on the business side. And yes, there are elements that you have to work on. But is that really the best use of your energy for the majority of the time? Is that really where you want to spend your life? Um, or do you want to spend more of your life in these spaces of emotion and empathy and courage and dreaming and passion and creativity? Um, and so uh, is the next thing that I have here that Jacob had said was when obstacles have been removed, it isn't what if you could do this thing, but rather what does matter to you. So we have so many options available to us now, right? We have life so much easier than most of humanity historically, like due to technology, due to advances. Um, the sky is the limit. We can create businesses out of our passion and out of our creativity, or we could sit in an office and do something that you're not loving. If that's something that you love, no um no judgment whatsoever. Do that. Do what you love. Whether you're listening to this podcast episode, that's probably not you. So what actually matters to you? What if your life were to end tomorrow, what would you regret that you hadn't done? Um, what are the things that you really want to kind of have as a foundation building blocks of not only your business, but your life? Do you want it to be these things that light you up? Your creativity, your passion, your empathy, your compassion, your gratitude, your honesty, your living life to the fullest and being present. I was going to say or the other, but I'd rather leave it on that end. And so to end it off, this episode, uh, one last thing that Jacob said was make a life, not a living. I love that so much. So much. Because we absolutely could. We could live we could live in our business focused on the money, on the finances, on making it all work logistically, on, being the most efficient, the most productive, the most, oh, just like generating the most. You could be so focused on doing all of the things the best possible way to have the greatest returns of money or success or whatever you want to measure that in. Or we could be focused on living. We could be focused on being humans with a human experience, with emotions and with stories and with creativity and with art and with passion and with care and compassion for our fellow humans. And we could live life living experiences, living stories. Whether for me, I love to travel, so that's the first thing that comes to mind. But whatever it is for you, for connecting with other humans, for finding a place of um, belonging and community and enjoyment, for embracing art and making that your life rather than the money, rather than what to me feels like more mundane. So I guess I want to challenge you. Uh, just think about sometime today, whether it's before you go to bed, you want to take some time to journal, whether you're in your car now or you're walking or transporting somewhere. Just take some time to think, to reflect on where in your life are you not focused on living and being present. Um, where on your life in your life are you just focused on surviving? Are you just focused on making a living? Are you just focused on being like everybody else? Where in your life are you not fully embodying who you are as a human, as a person, as a creative, as an artist? And look at those, like those gaps. Look at those things that maybe um, are making it so you don't feel as passionate, you don't feel as creative, you don't feel as fulfilled in your daily life. And and think about how you can create more space for those things. How can you create more space for the things that you love, for those things that light you up, for experiencing life as a human with emotions, with stories to tell and with stories to learn? How can you focus on making a life and not making a living? Um, and then the next step beyond that, I'm not going to assign you as homework. But if you want extra credit, um, if you really want to take action on this now, would be, all right, what do I need to change? What do I need to implement in order to really make a life, in order to really live this life the way that is going to bring something unique and creative to the world, that is going to light you up, fuel your passion, all of those things. And absolutely, that can include productivity, habit stuff. I am extremely passionate about that stuff, but I'm passionate about it to create space for these other things, to set boundaries and to be productive and efficient in those things that we have to do, um, so that we have space for the things that we really love to do, the things that really light us up. Alrighty, I'm so excited for you to do that exercise and to just find one thing, no matter how small it is, to help you to start living rather than focusing on making a living. All right, so excited for you, and I'm excited to chat with you on the next episode, the second part of the this interview with Jacob Collier, focusing more on business, on fear, on having a growth mindset, all of those things. It is a little shorter one. I don't have nearly as many quotes pulled for that. So, alrighty, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Wow, thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you found it valuable, please share the podcast with a designer friend. And if you have a minute, leave a review. It's so helpful for me and means the world to me. Chat soon.